Or to computer, and we're back for the last and concluding hour of the Connectathon. It has been, yeah, it always comes together. It's always more and more interesting, and your head is bubbling with ideas that didn't exist there 24 hours ago. And I think, like, as far as spending time and getting new ideas, there's not that much that really uh, comes comes into the same league as the Connectathon does, because the ideas that pop up are just so seemingly random, but they also all somehow also woven up and connected. So you wouldn't really get that from just watching a bunch of YouTube talks, because they wouldn't quite have this narrative, this red thread that flows through it all. But speaking of red thread, maybe I can hand over to you, Alexander, to give us your thoughts.
Well, yeah, this is the last hour. We've made it. It's like, any kind of a thon where it's a marathon or a connect-a-thon. It's like, well, 24 hours. Well, geez. So we're here. And this is a celebration. The whole thing is actually what isn't. Everything should be. But in terms of the red threading, this is our chance now in this last hour to see. So what has bubbled up? What have you learned? What have you experienced? What are your takeaways and take homes? One thing for me that's very clear is that beards are very important. Sam just changed and he has less of a beard now. Look at that. Jeez, just as I'm saying this. But yes, and Michael, I know you're going to be working on this in the near future, and then there are the beard support systems for Violetta and Susie and Feriel and Kim and others. So that's fine. But no, okay, sorry. I have to do that. But yeah, it's also this is this dance and it is this messy, but part of the messiness is this fun. Yeah, Ferial, you bring that in always in the engagements and just your own tone and ways of being. I mean, we all do this in the excitement and the bubbling. This I have felt throughout the this connectathon. I managed to be there now for 7 hours. That's not a whole lot. I want to do me a favor here. Put into the chat the number of hours that you have participated in this connectathon, if you want. But just, there's some people who are like there's some people who used to do this for 24 hours, and then they crash out afterwards. But how many hours have you been participating in this connectathon this time? I'd love to see that. And then and then what I like to do also is just, wow, Violetta was there for 18 hours. Oh God. Okay, we could, and Susie as well. And the hours. Oh, these are hours. I get it. It's very nice. They're the shared things. They're hours. 10. Whoa, you guys are all, and geez, look at this. I was there for 7. Man, I have a lot of other things going on as well, life here, but very, very, very cool. Thomas, cool, nice. Look at this. So engaging. So this is part of it living in us. I mean, who would do something on a weekend for, this amount of time? And what brings us into this? And why are we doing this? So and I hope you get better there, M. M for mystery. Hmm. But yeah, I hope you get better. So some things that Tim and I were thinking of doing a little bit here as we surface some of the ideas, and you think about this, and then we'll have a chance for all of us to jump in. But sharing what has emerged, there have been in this connectathon, there have been connections, obviously, to each other here among us. Thank you, Ferial. You can stop that. Okay. No, no. There have been connections to each other. There have been connections to nature. There have been connections across time. There have been connections to place. We've had such wonderful conversations about cities and about land. Um, we have had connections that bring us. So I would love to hear from you the not the things, because not all of these are things. So we've been connected to love. That's a huge thing. But not a thing. But what is it that we have been connected to in this connectathon? What have you felt brought into connection with? And again, if you can just put some words or terms into the chat to hear what it is that you have been connected to. Um, and then what I would like to do is also, I mean, with Tim and I, first I want to check in with Tim and see if there's anything connecting to spirit and to hope. These things that are coming up here. Wow. Um, and also to hear, Tim, what it is connecting to the future. That has been maybe the takeaway or take home. They're two different kind of way. Take away or take home coming in that have been bringing you alive. Tim, is there anything along those lines that you'd like to share that has been some insights or maybe outsides, things that you've seen and heard during this time that you want to share? And then we'll also bring this to others.
Yeah, thank you. Well, there's so much, and I don't want to spend a full hour talking about all the ideas that have popped up. But I think at the end here, something that I thought was really interesting when San spoke about this notion of the Ubuntu way of existing, and if something is if some member of your tribe is behaving in a way that is not congruent with the best interests of the tribe, rather than shunning them, everyone's looking at, okay, what is my responsibility in this person not behaving the way in a way that is congruent that is in alignment with us. Like this person is out of alignment, and how can we bring this person back into alignment? And it's such um well, it's interesting in so many ways, and I wrote in the comment about this. In the West, we have something in psychology called the theory of diffusion of responsibility, which means that basically if somebody collapses in front of you and you're the only person there, then you take responsibility and you're like, okay, I should probably do something. But if somebody collapses in a train full, then everyone's looking at, well, who's going to take responsibility? Who's going to, and it's so, and I always assume that I guess that's like a problem with the human algorithm, that we're just sort of designed to, like, the more people involved, the less individual responsibility we feel. But then I'm coming to realize that maybe that's actually not part of our design. Maybe that's actually part of our culture, and maybe that's a symptom of what is lacking with our culture. That these phenomena occur, and we assume that they are human nature when they aren't. They are cultural nature. So I think that was a really interesting observation, and realize, okay, there's a lot of things I need to rethink. And another thing we also spoke about this briefly with this notion of, and Gian likes to call himself a future ancestor, to like live our lives in this continuum of in such a way that our ancestors will be proud of us. Not just like looking back at your life, like how would I live a worthy life, but what would make my ancestors proud of me? They might not know my name or hardly even know my deeds, but that I made something significant enough for them to prosper. And I think that is the meta discussion of what this is about, like that which ushers in the eco-civilization, that which how we take the knowledge from the past, shape it, and put it into the future as a culture. And I guess finally I was thinking about something Michael mentioned about the bicycle being the one of the few examples of an actually pro-human technology that is actually really good. And I thought it was really interesting. The bicycle and the sewing machine, not the electrical one, but the hand woven one, or the one you easily fix yourself. And I'm thinking, so interesting, like this lack of these technologies. So that made me thinking about technology in a different way, and how can we build these technologies that help us become a species worthy of being Earthlings and leaving the planet, because we're really struggling with that. And that, I guess, is ultimately the idea of having something worth bringing, not just being custodians of the planet, but being a benefit to the universe. somehow. So those were a few of my lofty ideas. I'll hand it back to you,
I love that.
Alexander.
I love that, Tim, and it reminds me also of some good science fiction that for example, I'm just thinking of David Zindell's books on Neverness, and it takes place 5,000 years after the swarming, like after we go out into the universe, right? And there, one of the planets is an ice planet. It's kind of like Pluto. And how do people get around on that planet? Ice skates. I mean, it's why not do that? I mean, and then they don't have roads; they have glideries, right? Because that's what you get. That's this works, right? So these are the kind of things like the bicycle, and good science fiction weaves that in as well. You got the things that are just work with us, and we don't need to have just the latest gadgets with that. But I think this is part of the remembering, part of also what Susie you put in there that we are nature, and also this Yen's notion of future ancestors. I love that, how would we do our ancestors proud? How can they, be thinking about that? But also, how do we do our future generations grateful so that they are looking back at us and say, oh, hey, thank you for doing that. Because, and not that, because that would have made my world just much more difficult to live in. So how can we be, you know, having our ancestors be proud of what their choices, the way we are enacting, embodying and enacting their dreams, and how are we also um, uh, making a world that future generations can be grateful for. But so these are some of the things that, yeah. Let me mention my three things, and I want to open this up and see what others I want to bring into this. Um, so yeah, Tim, you mentioned three. I also have three, so that's nice. So one of them is what Susie and San were just talking about. Oh, it's usually the things right there, bringing things in. And they were talking about San was talking about time being a flow, being this amorphous thing that blurs. There's not like a digital time where it's cut off. The moment blurs from the past to the present to the future. You don't have this point in time where you say, okay, that's past and that's future. It's like it's a flow, and I love that. I love that idea of kind of like we're in a drop, and the droplet. These are big droplets, and the present is partly the past and partly the future. Right now, the right now is actually not right now, but it's this flow space. And there are cultures and peoples who actually live that more powerfully. But that notion of all the time being conditioned by, being in flow with, and conditioning, yeah, this is all that holding hands and being connected with the past moments, the future moments, but they're not really past. It's this bigger now, that long now. I love that notion. So there's this fluidity, right? And at the same time, Susie was talking about the power and the importance of having roots and having someplace solid to stand on. And we talked about this kind of thing throughout our Connectathon with the places, the land, the sense of identity, of belonging. It's not a matter of control or certainty, but it's a matter of here I am, here we are, of those kind of flexible boundaries, but at the same time, a sense of, incarnation of being something, not just being this amorphous. So this dance between that which is solid and that which is field, that which is flow and that which is manifest as a thing, I think that's beautiful. And we learned so much. That's one thing. And we learned so much about the dance. This is the other thing I want to mention. And how I was thinking when we were talking about being perfect and what San was talking about also, how things are not, I mean, if it's perfect, it's sterile. If it's not alive anymore, there's no place for humor, for dance. And I was thinking about murmurations of starlings, these beautiful flocks of birds or schooling of fish. It's not, but it's the imperfection that is perfect in a certain way. When it's still, when it's rigid, when it's stifled, when it is lifeless, then it's sterile and hopeless. But when we are in conversation and in dance, Marty Spiegelman would talk about how death is never an ending. That even when the big tree falls, it becomes a nurse log and creates the conditions for so much to emerge. And when it roots come up, it aerates the ground. It's so important for the dynamics of the ecosystem. So death is always active as well. And we tend to think of it in a very fixed and sterile way. But there are things we can do which stifle others. And I was thinking of life force. This is the last thing I want to mention that's coming up in these conversations. And the question that I woke up with today from the the parts of the Connectathon that I've been experiencing has been to ask, is it deadening or alivening? Yeah, but remembering that deadening doesn't mean, right, like over that kind of but it's the deadening in the sense of stifling, leading to sterile, hopeless, non-evolving, non-emerging, non-engaging, non opposite of connecting, right? Non-connectathon. And if it is deadening in that sense, it's not just a matter of sensing, but what I'm hearing from all of this is that then there's the question, what can I do about it? If it is something that is more deadening, what can you do? What choices can you make to transform or transmute it into something that is alivening? Right. And this is always the engagement. And so when I'm always asking, so how do I set my North Star? How do I know where to move? How do I need to know where to go? Some of the questions I've asked have been, what would love do? I like that. That's powerful. That comes from my friend Lawrence Bloom, who asked that question, what would love do? I like that. But also this questioning of, is it deadening or is it alivening? And then what can I do to make it more alivening? That's all. What can I do to make it, even if it, yeah, it's alivening. Last thing on this, and then I have something for everyone here, so you can move into this. William McDonough was talking about the concept of sustainability. He said, why do we want sustainability? I mean, we need much more than that. We can't settle for that. I mean, imagine if you were in a relationship, a loving relationship with somebody, and they ask you, hey, how's your relationship going? And you say, oh, well, it's sustainable. Yeah, I mean, I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. Well, so what are you going to do to make it more alive? I mean, so why, if it's not acceptable in human relations for to have a just a sustainable relationship, just like that's not there's something missing. Why is it okay or an objective for us with nature or with the world? So again, if something is sustainable, how do we make it more alive? How can we aliven and engage in true thrive ability? Cool. Tim, I'm ready to move on now to bringing this into more. At the end, we have the final ceremony, which we're hopefully all going to be here because we need to do this together to make this. Ceremony is participatory. Nobody, even if you're observing in a ceremony, you have a role, but in this case, we're all participating. Um, I'm going to put into the chat something, Tim, and then we can get to it after if we decide we want to do this. But let me just see here, and then Violetta, we want to bring you into conversation deeply, deeply here as well. I'm putting here a check plus delta, something just that you can think about. So the check is something you learned in this connectathon, something that you got out of that said, whoa, I didn't know about, the Dunbar number. No, I'm kidding. Something around those frames. And then something that you experienced that maybe, but whatever bubbles up, you can name a couple of things, and then something you'd like to see change because we would like to keep doing these connectathons. And this is a chance for all of us to hold this and to say, hey, this is how we can enliven, bring this even more into life. You can choose, we don't have to answer all three, but if you have one of these things that comes to mind, the idea would be to share this. Tim, what do you think about moving in this direction? How's that?
Yeah, I think that's really nice. It's quite concise, and so we can probably get almost everybody to come in on that for sure. But yes, but also I'd love to hear from Violetta as one of the founding creators of the Connectathon and driving forces, and it's wonderful to have you back. And 18 hours, no less.
Mm, I'm still contemplating, but I'd like to answer what Alexander asked, which are really good questions. First of all, it was for the first time Connectathon that was all about communities and nature and how to really deeply experience the community circles, how to work with nature, and all kinds of different angles around that. As I said, I missed a couple of hours, so maybe something else was discussed at that time, but it was surprising compared to other connectathons, which were much more all over the place. This one, it seems like that something is emerging, either a awareness or even a higher level of consciousness that we share. Even in the gaming session, which was interesting, we ended up talking a lot about communities and culture and the way how this is evolving. So that was the only tech session that I listened to. I also realized, and this is maybe something to keep in mind whenever we get there, is that our experience of a community is emerging on a very many different layers. And something that is for somebody, aha moment, wow, this is how it's supposed to be. For others, it's business as usual, and they or we are just realizing the beauty that we are part of. So there are lots of different experiences, and on one hand, this is beautiful. On the other hand, it's also being aware of that. It's easier for us to connect to the essence of the meaning of the messaging. What did I learn? I learned a lot of about a lot of interesting projects, but it was for me really great to listen to New Zealand story and the way how their education is floating down, how they're experiencing innovating in innovation in education segment. The story of Cork. I mean, I've never ever met anybody, any group who would talk so passionately and so with such a loving heart about their city. That's unbelievable. I mean, I was like, wow. And the fairy tales or stories that they shared were so real, so Celtic in a sense, no fairy, just real stories that really touched me deeply. Uh, and many others. I mean, I don't want to really single out too many, but those were maybe different to the point of my experiences again. Then something I experienced is that this time for many sessions, I'm learning how to practice deep listening. And I'm here in my mountain hut, so it's really a quiet space, private space. Uh, and I thought I'm going to be distracted or I would fall asleep or anything like that. But everything was so captivating that I couldn't fall asleep. I took those 4 hours. In 2 hours, I had energy shortcut, but um, the rest, I just couldn't fall asleep, even if I wanted to. So it is something captivating when people speak from their hearts and their true experiences, where they don't preach, but they really deeply share. And I think that's what Connectathon is evolving to is this deep sharing of the deep experiences, authentic experiences. At least to me, they are really attractive. Something I'd like to change. Poof, haven't got really a good idea for that. Um, maybe bring more music and some relaxing hours into the game, not the full hours, maybe 10 minutes, not to lose the audience and to distract the flow, but just a bit. We were just jumping, with all these interesting conversations, then, people were ending it on the minute and we jump into another one. So that would maybe be the only one that I can think of right now. But another really rich experience, really. And I can see how we are growing together. Thank you.
Shall I? I'll act as the let me let in Alejandra. There we go. Yeah, no, thank you, Viola. That was wonderful. And I think the some more time to pause and maybe some music will be wonderful. I think it's because it's in the pause that the new things can sort of happen. So yes, more pause. We live in a society with the technology that is so focused on dopamine constantly, so that we kind of forget that no, it's actually the pause that is where the magic happens. I'd like to check in also with you, Gavin, since you were here for our opening and you're our storyteller. Are there any things that are coming to your mind or surfacing?
Thank you. Thank you. I was kind of just processing. It does feel like that it's been so much has been taken in that I kind of feel like in some ways I'm going to sit with it for quite some time. And I think for me, it's what really I want to say, what I learned wasn't an intellectual thing. I guess for me, a big part, it was part of my weaving of the story, is that I used to feel so alone in this sense of, the world's insane and I just wanted to be different, like before I met Gian, I'd never met anyone who would like obsessed and, spend so much time learning and trying to figure out, how do we change this thing? And then meeting you, Tim, and then your network and Veriel and everyone else, realizing, I'm not alone. And now more and more and more, it just feels like, that there's this tribe and this spirit that's moving through it. And I feel that evolution, I feel like more and more there's just a coming together of like-minded, like-hearted souls. And more and more also, I feel like the in the past, like also when I grew up, I studied philosophy, religion, ethics. I was very to figure out the God thing was my first question. I was like, I have to understand this because either the world's one way or it's another. If this, God thing is real, it's one thing, and if it's there, it's not. And I answered that question in my own heart, I think, from the get-go, and I just needed to confirm it with my mind. But now like, spirituality has become such a fad. And when I was younger, I thought, well, if people get the oneness, if they get the unity, then there must be a certain way. And then you realize, no, not at all, actually. And the more I went, the more like spiritual people became like something I tried to run away from. And I've drawn this sort of distinction in my own life between spiritual people and people of spirit, because some of the most amazing people I know may not even believe in God, but they just walk around making the world better where they stand, and they bring joy, they bring positivity. And this network and this event is so full of people who have spirit. I feel like what I'm really processing is just the energy and the beauty of the people who presented, their journeys, their life, that they all, one way or another, all of you are people who are just making the world better where you stand. And seeing it come together and feeling it, I really feel incredibly heartened. And I really feel like, yeah, we just really are on the right track. Whatever the media says, whatever, the noise is about, I just feel that life is unfolding exactly as it should. And the mystery and the magic of it just continually stuns me, I guess. And yeah, in terms of what I'd like to see change, in some ways, nothing at all. I think this is really beautiful, and I think it's evolving. I do also like the idea of pauses and more music, and I guess at some point I'd love to see a breakout room random session where just, we just see who we wind up with and get to know them well. I'd really enjoy that. But yeah, I just want to say thank you again for initiating this, for everyone who rocked up. It's just it does leave me feeling very fulfilled and heartened, and in this moment incredibly exhausted, but happy and content. So thank you all.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gavin. So, I could throw out like questions left, right, and center, but I'd love for people, if you feel called, to raise your hand virtually or physically. Anybody has anything that they'd like to speak to? Doesn't have to be there we go. Okay, I think Michael, and then Susie, and then we'll see who's after that. Michael, you go first.
Three little things that occur to me about moving forward and what is the best of and that sort of. The first one, I'm sort of embarrassed to talk about because I'm one of those with a beard on occasions. I was just about to sit into a group late last night when I realized that it was obviously going to be a women's group. So I cut my video and shut off. And I went to cook, but I'd left the sound on. And I think the most powerful moment for me in this Connectathon was a bit that I wasn't in because I was in the kitchen. And it just was so beautiful that a dozen women were holding a space in which the pace was the single most significant thing. The pause between each person speaking. And there was such a beauty emanating from that, whatever it was they were talking about or whatever. And it just made me wonder, can we actually lead every session with women as they're doing under a Java? And, there are different places where different social ecology is coming forward. And they were just sort of seeing all these beards sitting around the edges and not coming in until invited. And so I'm not quite sure. I'm part of what was a women's group and a men's group that joins forces, and it's called Dragon's Breath. But there isn't really any balance. And I just wondered how we allow that feminine aspect to come forwards to lead the pace. Not the content or, just the pace. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. So thank you for all the, and it was very similar to the one in Easter, which was about the river flowing through me. That's sort of, it's such a grounded, such a peaceful relationship that and so in terms of do we have a space between each session? Do we have a piece of music? Somebody put in the chats, could we have a meditation moment? It's like that was what was happening between each speaker in that session. There were those meditation moments where you were listening to Mother Earth, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And it wouldn't have happened anywhere but on Connectathon while you're going to cook and leaving your video on or whatever. The second point is that in the last session with San and Susie, there was this lovely sort of thing that was obviously what intentional community was about, but it wasn't really expressed as intentional community. And Alexander chipped in with his work, and I know it's so parallel to my work. So there's a thread there that I want to carry forward from this, and it's about what size is community, what is in and what's out, and it's like there's a whole conversation there that we might develop between now and then come together as a panel on is it intentional or is it re-intentional? Because the bulk of communities are already out there, and how do we re-intention them? So there's that sort of thought, which is about do we focus more before the connectathons on what we're going to be pulling together in them? It's that sort of thing. And the final bit, months ago, I wrote on our page something which I'd just love to repeat because I happened to print it off a week or so ago. If Connectathon is coming of age, then perhaps it's becoming an open dialogue on what beauty we really perceive. Where children run in meadows and amongst the butterflies and wildflowers, where one's occupation is only the thing you love. Perhaps we've a couple of years to dream, to lead, to inspire, to love, and to radiate a new life. And the people I've met through Connectathon so far have helped me to do that. We are the beating heart of a new life. This is not a project, it's a state of magnificence. Thank you.
That was wonderful, Michael. I love that. Could you possibly post it in the chat? And if not, send it to me in a message, because I'd love to put that. Oh, you're muted. There you go.
I hate technology. It's August the 17th, back in our WhatsApp.
Oh,
It was a whole piece about, oh, look, there's some kind of opposition going on here about what the next Connectathon is going to be like. And so I was trying to write a piece that was like the Vesica Pisces. It's not what are the differences between us? Where do we overlap? What is the commonality? And it's that kind of beauty. It's exactly what I heard in that women's group, you know? And it's like, we're all talking about the beauty we need to bring forwards.
wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, I'm gonna hand over to you, Susie. There was something I wanted to reflect on that you said, and I think that it has completely slipped my mind with that eloquent description of what the Connectathon could be. So maybe I can circle back to that later if there's time. We'll see. Susie, please, you step in, please.
So I remember when we were setting up and we set a very powerful intention for this Connectathon. And it was very apparent the last Connectathon, the theme was this consciousness, awareness coming through. So when we did set the intention, now, Tim, you must know that I am like, intention manifests, words create, and emotions, which is energy and motion behind it, the force behind it, is what is the fuel behind these words for it to manifest. So when we spoke about this Connectathon, and then the intention behind it was that we would create the space consciously and with this theme of consciousness being a really big thread in our sessions and in the whole creation. And then when you had a wobble, when there was only one or two of us showing up on calls and everything, it was so embedded in my roots that this Connectathon was happening, that there was no doubt. There was no space for any doubt to come through. It was already this energy, it was moving. It was moving. And Michael, that calmness to sit in the presence of the feminine heart is a real thing of where manifestation happens. Manifestation happens between everything in the spaces. So I knew that this was going to happen. And I know that I've been part of this journey from the beginning. I am so proud of today, of the growth of every single being here, and certainly those that I've known over the last 3 years, of this consciousness, of this awareness. And the big theme that came through of sharing was love. Everything was, how do we approach things through love, which is the heart, which is the natural resonance to nature. That is the natural nature default setting. Love. It's a grounded frequency. So my heart is so full, and my tree is so rooted in this creation that was and has happened. And I don't know, I'm so proud to be part of this. I'm so proud to be part of this creation that has brought people together to give us a place to know that we're not alone on this journey, that it is we have a new world that we are hatching through everything that we are speaking, everything that we are sharing, everything that we are creating through and from love. It's a whole new language. We're talking leadership from love. We're talking connection, community, everything through love. The amount of nature connection that was spoken was everything, Tim, that we spoke about setting intention. Every single thing has manifested, which brings me to the point of the power of us as individuals manifesting. How powerful can we be with intentional community creation, manifestation? So these connectathons that we are expanding now can be so beautifully woven with the wisdom that we have all learned from each other. We're just activating each other, just activating. And I urge you now, because I know after this I'm going to do it, is for those of you who can, you've got to step outside, take your shoes off and breathe this moment in and pause. Alexander, PAWS times 4. Please give pause a squeeze. But for our pause on the ground, when we can breathe this in now, and every single cell of us can actually just absorb what really has already happened. Everything that's happened today is now manifesting in our new story. Because it's us who are creating this new world by these conversations of giving everyone hope, of giving everyone that inner light boost. And conversations like this bring communities together, bring people together, and activate so much in our projects and in our own inner worlds. So I want to thank all of you. I also want to thank Kimberly for being my tree and my roots, for us bringing these incredible women together and these conversations together of love with this foundation of connection, with this foundation of communication, with this foundation of knowing that this is the wisdom that we can birth our new world. It's happening. It's happening a lot faster than we even realize. And it all starts with us. And now that there are more of us in love, more of us in nature, more of us together with this belief, anything and everything is possible with awareness. So be very aware of intentions, of how powerful they are, and be very aware of the words and the connections you make now of the creations that are being created, because we have a powerful foundation of incredible projects on every single scale, from health to education to the beingness to life itself. And I'm so proud to be my human tree and alive right now and be part of all of this. So from my big heart in Cape Town and from my universal heart, thank you, Violetta. Thank you for showing up, for that first nudge you got, and for bringing us all together, and for the team that is changing the world. And I would like to see more and more people on this. But I do know the more that we step into our own powers, the more our magnet will grow and the more the people will be attracted to the new being that is showing the way. So thank you. Thank you all. It really has been a very special Connectathon.
Thomas, please go. I will go in after you.
Yeah, I think the one thing that really stuck in my mind after the time I've spent here in the last 24 hours is the idea of a planetary community. There's so many people from all over the planet in this Connectathon, and like-minded people for the most part. So, it gave me, I put in the chat, I put hope, because the positivity is spread across the planet, and people are doing important and major things to contribute to a higher consciousness. And survivability and everything else. And I've always been uh, a globalist ever since I was very young. I kind of believed that I didn't, even though I lived in a small place here in the South or somewhere, I related to the planet, to the Earth. That I was a citizen of the planet. So that really uh, stuck with me for this. And I wanted to thank Kim for inviting me to become a part and to share a few things. Um, and so, if I may just part with a simple short poem I'd like to uh, share with everyone. It's called The Perfect Work. Love is the perfect work, a music which rings all the bells in the temple, a special wind in the trees. Listen to the way the drummer hits lovingly his drum, the way the dancer moves over the warm earth, and watch his children leave their bodies behind on the old logs around the fire and sing. The world is aglow in the shadows of the children singing, of the sticks against wood, of the heavy silent breathing of the old ones who sit off to the sides of the circle and pray. When I am at work in my garden, I take off my shoes. I let my other hands embrace dirt. I plant myself in this place. And knowing what love is, I awake in this place in my body, full of dream music, full of light. So thank you all, and thank you for inviting me, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Thomas. That was beautiful. Oh my gosh. Epic. Indeed. How lovely. Whew. Gosh. Yeah, really, this one talks about one's heart being full. It's I don't know. I'm sure I'm sure this is shared. And that's the nice thing when I can speak of us. And I know that we are sharing in this. Thank you for that, Thomas. Beautiful. And Susie, oh my goodness. What you said. Just a perfect 24th hour reflection, commentary, reminder. And I want to tie this with something that Violetta said earlier. What Susie just said and what Violetta said earlier, they connect because something is emerging here. And as those of us who have been working on getting this thing going here, and it's Tim as being the one at the helm. Oh my goodness. I mean, Tim, you've been the Tim tab, the trim tab that's helped make this thing work. Oh my goodness. And there have been times when we were like, no one's showing up, but it's not how we're going to do this. There's not enough time, not enough resources. And it happens anyway. And this is what I want to bring out. And because it's not like, oh, it happens anyway, you don't have to worry about it. No, it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, as they say. Well, no, but laughter and joy and dancing. But there's something forming here. And this is what Violetta tagged into. And this is what Susie, you were saying as well. And something that we've all been saying throughout this Connectathon. Something's emerging here. Gavin, you were pointing to this as well very strongly, that this is bigger than us. It's bigger than us. And that's, for me, the deeper realization of what's going on in the world as well. Rupert Sheldrake, in working on this from a more scientific framework, talks about morphogenic resonance, right? That fields are created, not just biofields, the morphogenetic resonance, but morphogenic resonance as well, where By engaging in things, we bring it into being. There was a wonderful little comic in the New Yorker a long time ago that said it's getting easier and easier to disprove Sheldrake. That's because the more you do something, the more, right, which is a contradiction. But the point is, the first time you do something is hard, right? That's why so many inventions happen simultaneously, right? The invention of the telephone, the refrigerator. There's several things that are historically like, wow, these happen at the same ideas come into being at the same time. Uh, Alexander Bogdanov and Ludwig von Bertalanffy thinking about systems theories and so on and so forth. Same time, different places on the planet. Wow, field, the hundredth monkey effect. Right. Well, we don't need to go into my point is simply saying something is emerging here. And this is what we're all noticing. Violetta, you pointed it out, Susie, Gavin, we're all talking about this. And it has to do with both intention and it has to do with now how we're showing up. So this is what I want to just end this and I'll pass it back to Tim. And then we're going to need to wrap this because we're at the end of our Connectathon this time. I'm not sure, but I would imagine that, in our past lives, we were hanging out in the caves. Like, there's a lot of survival issues going on there. And there's a lot of fear of the night, for example, like the sun went away. And perhaps in the early mornings or before the sun comes back, there's a lot of singing and people coming out to make the sun rise and calling it back. And then participating, and then the sun comes up and everyone is relieved because we have helped make the sun come into being. Yeah, well, now we know it doesn't work that way, but it does anyway. It's that participating, it's that engaging, and at the same time, it is knowing that it is happening. Community is forming. Connectathons, I think, will continue to happen until the whole world is connected. It's happening in these ways, right? That might not look like it in the news, but this is here. We don't have to push the sun up. We don't have to deal with so many aspects of our own body, regenerate the cells in this part of our body. This happens. But we have to create the conditions that are healthy for it to happen. Yeah. And this Connectathon is part of creating those systemic nurturance spaces, those places where this kind of field can flourish. And then trusting that the field will flourish. Because that is what happens. And we don't have to force it. We don't have to engineer it. We can just be danced by it and celebrate. Yeah. The sun is coming up. I'll pass it to Tim.
Thank you, Alexander. This speaks to what I realized what I wanted to mention, which I remembered when Susie was speaking, which Michael made me think of, and which Violet already touched upon, and many of us else here is about community. And this notion that, sometimes you think that there's cells in our body, they're individual cells in our body, they all have our DNA and yada yada. And then there's all the bacteria and other mushroom, fungi and things that live within us that create us. And the individual cells could have no concept of the greater us, but yet we are them. And then you think, okay, then there's this greater, the humanity, which is something that is beyond the parameters of the individual, but we are that humanity and it moves in ways we maybe can't understand because we are these tiny components. But then I realized that there's this sort of interim state, the community, which we can kind of understand, but we know it's greater than us, and we can see that it is greater than us because it's that's where the magic happens. The individual is the atom, the community is a molecule, and the molecule is where the magic happens because the molecule can start building things. So that's just my takeaway between as an individual realizing that okay, maybe it's like that the community is our next step, and that we can sort of understand and we can feel and we can sense and we know how dependent we are on it. And through that next step, that community, once these communities now can start connecting with each other, that's where civilization comes from. And that's that level. We don't need to understand that. We just need to work on our communities. And our communities will figure out how to connect with other communities and communicate with other communities. And that's how the magic will happen. And that's how we will reach our eco-civilization. I believe. So I think about 5 minutes left to go. Yeah. Do you wanna commence the our ritual of release?
I do want to just check with Violetta before I do that. Violetta, we are eco-civilizationing, I think. I just want to put this into a verb. That's what we're doing. But is there anything you want to share before we go into our final ceremony?
The dots are emerging, and eventually they will connect. That's how eco-civilization will happen. And that's what we're doing. We're setting the dots, and the rest will happen. I'm so excited. Not tomorrow, maybe in 20, 30 years, we will live through it. I know that. I feel it deeply, like Susie says. I know it in my heart that we will see this transformation. And it's really beautiful to sense it.
You know, when the dots are alive, they find each other. And this is exactly what's happening. This is about the enlivening, because when this is biophilia, we know this. Dots that are alive, they're not just dots. These are the imaginal discs, the imaginal cells. This is how it emerges. And I love that, Violetta, because yeah, we'll find each other and we don't have to actually really go looking. Yeah, we should as well. But it happens because the field brings us into play. All right. Speaking of play, last 3 minutes here. I feel like I want to shout. A joyous shout. A joyous shout. I don't know about you. Let's do this. Let's do this for those of you who haven't been part of this. This is what we're going to do. This is now releasing our collective ball of intention, all the things we've been celebrating, all the things we've brought into being, the things that we have embodied and are now enacting and will continue to inform us. We're kind of like manifesting this field now in a symbolic representation of collecting a huge ball of our intentions. It's no tension here, but just intention. We bring this ball into being again. It has been surrounding us for this Connectathon, and now we're going to package it back into this beautiful big ball that we're all going to hold together. It's so big. And then we're all going to lower it quickly. I mean, doesn't not too quickly, but it comes down to the ground. But we're going to start from the ground and we lift it up with a sound. And when it comes to the height, we release it with a shout. And this will be the ball that we release into the universe, around Gaia, for the rest of the time until our next Connectathon. And it will surround us and inform us and continue to connect us. Are you ready? All right, I'm going to stand up to do this. You can do what you like, but I would ask you to turn on your mics so we can all hear the shouts. And I'm going to start low, and then we're going to raise up slowly, slowly, but we'll hear each other's voices, and we raise up and release the ball together. All right, let's go. Here we go. All right, let's go down, collect this big ball. All right, we're in flow. Guys, yeah, still wearing the same shirt because you know what happens with the Connectathon. All right. Woo! We did
Good.
it.
Well done, everyone. See you in 6 months. We will see you all before.
Well, I hope before, right?
Absolutely before.
Bye-bye. Love you.
Well done,
Thank you,
all.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.